Hey guys, welcome back to the Blue Collar Future podcast. I am your host, Jaden Robinson. For those of you who may not know me, may be listening to this for the first time, we have our community started up so you can get longer interviews on there. There's already a couple interviews on there that aren't even available yet everywhere else, and they have an extra 15 to 30 minutes on them, depending on the interview and the episode. Well worth it. It's $10 a month. Join. It's to support the podcast and to support the movement so we can grow and expand this deal. So I've been amazed by the support from everybody, and everybody has been awesome in aiding with the podcast and growing it. I'm getting to a point now where I'm having people reach out to me to be on the show, which is really cool considering I started this podcast at the beginning of the year and I didn't really know where I wanted it to go. I didn't know what the exact direction was of it in the first place. So super cool. Excited to be growing and building this. And I'm excited to start doing some in-person meetups. So follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. And if you're a new listener, welcome. This podcast is about the future of the trades. So we talk about everything from covering trade topics and the workforce and different jobs that you can get into, as well as health and fitness, mental health, spiritual health, and lifestyle, managing life while in a manual labor job. That's a lot of what we talk about. I'm very big on being fit physically and how much benefit that gives you on the mental aspect as well. And really focusing on your mindset and your purpose, because that's where a lot of people fail. That's where a lot of people don't know. Maybe they weren't taught, maybe they just haven't figured it out yet, but they don't know. And that's the biggest part about this podcast is I'm noticing I'm having a shift from topics from covering trade work specifically to moving towards purpose and mindset and relationships, and maybe even just because that's where my focus is right now, is working on building me, building my relationships, building my mental health and my physical health. That's where my focus is at, because everything else comes after. Everything else follows along if you build up those areas. Now, right now, we send kids off to school to just go to college to just learn knowledge, learn whatever it is. And whether or not they have an idea, we try to have them figure it out in high school. And if they don't have an idea, well, the answer is still go off to college. And if you have a college education, you'll be set. A college degree, piece of paper, whatever. And that's all you need. And it's really damaging to people, young kids nowadays, because they go into a trade job and not only are they not pushed as a viable option, if they do that, people will just say, well, you just weren't good enough to go to college. And this bar of having a university degree is nonsense. A lot of people that make the most money in the world don't even have a degree. And most of the people I know that make the most money don't have degrees, which is quite contrast to what people say and think. Now, you need to have knowledge and you need to have skills. You need to have the proper skill set that makes you money. And that doesn't come through sitting in a classroom, and it doesn't come from teachers that, bless their hearts, have only ever been in the education system. They don't know a thing about making money. What bewilders me is they have college professors teaching business that have never ran a business. If you've never applied your knowledge, you can't hardly teach a class on it. That aside, right now, there is such an opportunity in trade work in general for anybody to come in and make a ton of money. Pretty much 40% of the workforce is going to be retiring within the next 10 years, which is a crazy number. That is crazy high. And we do not have that amount of people going in. I mean, there is so much opportunity to even start a business in this area, and there will always be a demand. There will be a demand for your lifetime. So if you thought about joining trade work and maybe you found this podcast because you wanted to see what it's like, you're in the right place. If you want to join the trades, find someone to work for, find a trade that you're interested in, and just get after it. It is never a bad thing to learn from multiple people, but getting in and staying in one is more likely going to be your best bet. And I tell people all this all the time. The dream job is not a true thing in the sense that people have taken it as. People are not born with this career that's going to make their dream. People are not born, come out of the womb with oh, I'm going to be an astronaut, or, oh, I'm going to be a nuclear engineer, or a petroleum engineer, which both of those things are what I had thought about doing before. People develop these dream jobs over time. They develop these dream jobs over the course of their life based on things that they like and things that they think would align with their value and with values and with their purpose. And it's kind of hard to have a dream job if you don't have a purpose. But I argue that anything can be your dream job as long as you work at it and you feel like you have a purpose in what you're doing. A purpose beyond showing up to work and getting a paycheck, and a purpose beyond just being there just because you have to, just because you need a job. So this podcast is all about, got a little sidetracked there. For any of you that are new, I've had some new listeners joining in. That's what it's all about. And today we're going to take a little bit of a step aside from there, like we have been, and talk about health and fitness. And I spent quite a bit of time talking about health and fitness on the first few episodes of my podcast. The first few solo episodes were actually health and fitness focused, and took a little bit of a step aside because there's a lot of topics to cover. There's a lot of things I like to talk about. But health and fitness has been something that has been a big part of my life for a long time. I tell people all the time that I work out, and I have been, especially, but when I started, I would tell people that I work out. And then in the same breath, when I say that I do construction, that people are like, they're taken aback. And it's like, whoa, you work out and you do construct? That's hard. That's hard. How can you do that? How do you have energy for that? And it's always blown my mind how little people think that they are capable of, to the point that they make excuses for other people to make excuses for themselves. So imagine a scenario where, you have somebody that gained a few pounds. Maybe they were active in the gym following diets, and then they kind of stopped, gained weight. You will have people not only offer sympathy, but make excuses for them. Like, oh yeah, well, you're super busy, totally understandable. I get it. To make excuses for themselves. They don't care. They're happy. They're happy that you lost weight. I mean, that you gained weight, and that you are no longer in good shape, because it lets them off the hook. It gives them an out. If people love to play this game of passing off the responsibility to something else. People love to say, well, I'm just big boned. What? Big boned? And that's why you're overweight. That's why you have a bunch of fat. That's why you're unhealthy. You can barely move because you're big boned. And anything that people can say to devoid themselves of all responsibility for their health, they will do. And that's the crazy part, is they will make excuses for someone else to also at the same time make excuses for themselves. It fascinates me. It's amazing. People are crazy. And the standard is set so low that me being over here, I work out 3 times a week. And actually right now it's 2. And by workout, I mean lift weights. And I have been the whole time, well, for probably the last 6 years. I haven't missed more than a week in the last 6 years. And the whole time people have asked me and said to my face that I'm on steroids. What? Me? I'm 5'8" and 150 pounds, 55 as of recently. And you're going to tell me I'm on steroids? I'm not overly huge. I'm not overly strong. I may be strong for my weight. I'm not overly vascular. I don't look like I'm on steroids. I'm not all red and puffy. I'm not extremely vascular in that sense that it looks like I am. But people don't know the signs for steroids. So they like to pass the buck of this person's fit, they must be on steroids. They like to pass that off to something else to then devoid themselves of responsibility and say, well, I can't get to be like that because he's on steroids. And that's the real reason people do that. They don't do it because they actually think I'm on steroids. They're fishing for answers. A lot of people joke around about it. A lot of people have actually been serious. And even when people joke around, there is truth in jokes. That's what makes them funny. There's always truth in joking. And even if they're joking around, there's some part of their brain that is like, well, if he is taking steroids and he's at that point, I can't possibly get there. And that's been a funny thing for me to deal with, because this goes back to people love to say and do things that take power away from themselves. So because you want to say someone else is on steroids, you want to make it so that it's impossible, quote unquote, impossible for you to get to that point. You want to take away your ability to get to that point. Blows my mind. It is one of the craziest things I have noticed in my life, that people will justify everything to make themselves not feel bad for being lazy. This brings us into what I want to talk about. About this standard, this low bar that is today, this low standard that we have today, and about what it really takes to get fit. Let's say not overweight, to be not overweight. Because most people think that 7 days a week in the gym is going to save them. And this is something I've been thinking about a ton and is talked about a lot, but a lot of people don't really know if it's true because there's so much information out there. When you're talking about losing weight or just not putting on weight, it is 90% your diet and how much you eat. 90%. Okay, you can chalk about 10% up to lifting weights, your cardio, your whatever. Just not stuffing your face all the time will keep you under this overweight deal. It'll keep you from putting on a ton of weight. And just not stuffing your face all the time will make you lose weight. A lot of people don't understand that. Nowadays in America, we have a huge problem with putting on weight because of garbage food, fast food, and because of a bunch of sedentary action. But a lot of people will go ahead and blame this for that reason. Or what my favorite is, a lot of people will tell me that I'm in shape because I'm in construction. I see people all the time in construction that are overweight. It has nothing to do with it. In fact, there are people that do put on weight while working in construction in a hard job. Because here's the thing, a construction job is only hard for like the first 6 months or a year, and then you get used to it. And when you get used to it, you're no longer pushing yourself, pushing your body past a certain point that is going to have any sort of effect on your body. It can, if you think about it like that and you want it to be like that. But if you don't, and you're not making an effort and you're not putting in all that work, it doesn't. So there are literally people that will put on weight and get fat while working a manual labor job, while moving. That's not the only thing. If it was that, there would be no people in construction that are overweight. Just wouldn't be. If it was actually how much you move that caused it. So that being said, the diet's the most important part. And I can eat a lot. And I know a lot of skinny people that say they can eat a lot and they can eat whatever they want. And so this thing kind of gets twisted because a lot of people hear that and they say, well, they can eat however much they want. Like, well, then that just means just because I'm big boned, that's why I'm fat and overweight. But here's the thing. Number one, someone who's small like me and then skinnier doesn't have as much room in their stomach as someone who is bigger already. So eat whatever I want and all of that doesn't mean I can eat thousands of calories over what my body can handle, because there is a point where your stomach can only handle so much. So I've thought about that before because I can eat a lot, and I tell people I can eat whatever I want all the time, except for the fact that I do not eat all day. There's a lot of times in the morning I don't eat it all. I don't eat it for breakfast, and a lot of times before I started even making my lunch, I didn't even eat lunch. So I would only eat dinner, and then I eat a ton of dinner, and it's okay. It works. I probably under eat right now still, right? But I don't lose weight and I put on a little bit of weight. So I gauge that as I'm eating enough. And if you get to a point where you're conscious and you pay attention, you can get to a point where you can tell what your body can handle. So that being said, we also have metabolisms, which basically our bodies burn a certain amount of calories. And some people have a slower metabolism, so they do not need to eat as much. Their bodies do not burn as many calories as someone else. Some people have really high metabolism, so they really can eat a ton and not gain weight. All of that being said, there's a few things I want to point out here. After thinking about that and the fact that I know a lot of skinny people that can eat a lot, most of the time it's just in one sitting, and myself included, and it's not all day. And anytime I'm around someone who's bigger and who's overweight, they eat a lot more than I do, like a ton more than I do. And whatever I want is not nearly as much as what they eat. I can eat whatever I want, but it falls within a set boundary of I don't eat until I'm absolutely stuffed all day, every day. There's rarely times I even eat until I'm completely stuffed. So that got me thinking, a lot of people really just have access to food way too often, which is why intermittent fasting has become a thing. People will intermittent fast because you shorten your eating window and there is less of a chance for you to overeat. Because if you're eating a huge breakfast, you're going out to lunch and eating a bunch of garbage, and then you go home and you eat a big dinner, it is a huge difference between someone that doesn't eat any breakfast, a light lunch, and a very big dinner. It's so much harder to overeat that way because your stomach can only handle so much at a time. So what I've noticed is skinnier people that are saying they can eat whatever they want. Well, usually whatever they want is not so far out of these bounds that they gain weight anyways. Maybe they have a high metabolism, maybe, but their body also can't even take in as much food as someone else that it, has this bigger stomach already that is big. And people wonder why they're gaining weight. I don't think people understand just how much they're eating in the first place. Because the most important thing about dieting, or like dieting shouldn't even be a thing, because it really should just be what you normally eat. The biggest thing about that, about your diet, is if you constantly stuff your face and eat more than you should all the time, you're going to gain weight. And that's how it goes. It shouldn't be called a diet when you go to lose weight. It should be called, I'm going to start eating what a normal person eats, what my body can handle. And there's a bunch of ways to figure that out, but we really need to change our approach to food and to what we eat and how we eat. Can't keep going out to McDonald's all the time. Eating fast food is terrible. It's garbage. When I say, this isn't along the same lines of what I say when I eat a lot. When I say I eat a lot and eat whatever I want, fast food makes me sick. The smell of it alone makes me sick. And there are very few fast food places I'll even eat. I like donuts too. I like some sweets, but really I'm not a dessert person. So I don't eat a lot of garbage. I don't eat a lot of candy. I don't drink a ton of soda, and I don't drink beer, which is a huge gainer of weight for people. I don't do any of those things. And when I eat a lot, it is of real whole food meats and really just good things. That's the important thing. What you eat and how much of it you eat. Need to change your approach to what you eat. And that is the main thing I wanted to talk about today. People have an overeating problem and a quality of food issue. And even if you don't eat a ton and you drink a ton of sodas and a ton of alcohol, beer, those are a ton of empty calories that are only going to serve to make you gain weight. It's about calories in versus calories out. The amount of exercise you do, the amount of work you do, how much you move, rarely counteracts that so much that you can literally splurge all the time. When I say I eat whatever I want, what I want usually isn't trash. It's not a bunch of garbage. And it also is not all day, every day. That's the biggest thing to get across to people. When a smaller person that stays that way says that, they say that because of their conception of eating whatever they want is not nearly as much as someone who consumes that on a daily basis and on a meal basis, like every single meal. Working out is a good way to help aid your weight loss journey. Running doesn't really help that much if you're looking for just losing weight. running and cardio is important for your heart and your heart health, not really for losing weight. Lifting weights is the best way to aid your weight loss journey by lowering your calories a little bit and lifting weights. You'll simultaneously build muscle and you're cutting down on calories. So your body's going to consume the calories of the fat because you're not eating enough calories. And also you're going to be building muscle. When you build muscle, the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn. So essentially you are boosting your metabolism or boosting the amount of calories you can burn. So you actually can eat more. That's the reason why lifting weights is better than anything else for losing weight. The important thing to remember, again, it's calories in versus calories out. And just want to talk about this because people have such a weird idea about what is healthy and what isn't, and what is normal and what isn't. Somehow I can be over here regular size, stayed basically the same size for 6 years, and people will think I'm on steroids because that level of fitness that I have is so far out of reach from some people because of their own mind, because they take the power away from themselves to make that change, because they want to chalk it up to they have outside help, they have extra help. And when I make this argument to people, and when they know that, my next question is, I mean, if you aren't taking the power away from yourself, what do you think is the reason I'm the way I am? Am I somehow special? Am I somehow better than you? Nobody should say that or think that. And if we can agree that nobody is better or special, better than anybody else, we can agree that if one person can do it, another person can. And it doesn't have to be killing yourself, and it doesn't have to be this big ordeal. The simple fact is people eat too much, and that's why you gain weight, and it's not good for you. It's not argued. It's not an argued fact that being overweight's bad for you, for your physical health and your mental health, for everything. It affects your brain. It affects your body. Your body is not meant to handle that much fat. And it even goes for muscle. Your body's not meant to handle the amount of muscle that you even put on when you're on steroids in the first place. Like that's a lot of the reason why you see a lot of big bodybuilders that get huge towards the end of their career, and at the end of their life, they're crippled. Your body's not meant to handle that much. There's kind of a happy medium and a good zone to be in that your body can handle. And a little bit of fat is fine, but being more than 15% body weight for 15% fat for a guy, probably 20 for a girl, is not good. And if you're above that point, you need to do something about it. And again, it comes down to what you eat. If it seems like I'm beating a dead horse here, it's because that is the most important thing. Now you can go look at ways to implement this into your life, and diets and workouts and all of that. The simple fact is there's not a workout that's going to save you, and there's not a diet that's going to save you. It is calories in versus calories out. That's it. So thanks for listening, guys. Sorry for beating a dead horse for 20 minutes, but super important topic. And it's something I've been dealing with for a long time, where people take the power away from me of the work I've put in because they don't want to see somebody that has done pretty normal amount of working out and no extreme dieting and no steroids be at the level that I'm at. People don't want to see you win. People don't want to see you in better shape than them. by just doing pretty common sense things. We want to figure out some way to make it that it's impossible for them and that somehow you're just cheating or special or lucky or whatever. People want to take the power away from them and you and make excuses for them and make excuses for you. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live without the power in my mind to make changes in my life and to do things. I don't want to have something preventing me because, oh, I just can't. Because of a story I tell myself. Thanks for listening, guys. And we will be talking about this next week, actually, on the next, or not next week. I'm about to record with another person who's in the blue collar space that is about health and performance and fitness. So I'm excited for that one because I have not had anybody like that yet. And it's going to be a fun one. Keep an eye out for some of the things that we're going to be doing on the podcast. I'm going to be doing monthly meetups, weekly calls in my group, and we're going to start doing $100 tip dinners. And that is an awesome way to give back to your community and do something nice for people, is getting a group together of people together, go to a local restaurant, and everybody chips in $100 for the tip. If you can get 20 people there and everybody chips in $100, imagine what that'll do for the servers. Awesome things. Find ways to give back to your community, and let's all be better. We know we can. Don't take the power away from yourself to enact change in your life. Don't do it. Don't speak words into existence that take the power away from you. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you next week.